be good. Welcome everyone who's currently here. Uh, if you're joining, welcome. Of course, if I keep saying welcome, like as if we didn't literally just get started. How is everyone doing? I'm doing pretty well. We got some fun things to talk about as this has been a recent. The point of today's stream has been of a recent debate I've been seeing going around in the Pathfinder community. I know this was also going to pertain to other systems like Dungeons and Dragons or Starfinder. But I think today we're going to be focusing purely on the 2e side of this argument, which I've noticed would be a lot of what makes a class, what makes it different than other classes. What's the difference between the cleric and the druid, And I'm hoping that I don't run into any technical difficulties. There we go. All right, cool. I can see chat. That was a thing that has been a annoyance to me for the last several streams. I'm gonna just take a quick drink. Let people come in. Then I will start giving my thoughts on all the classes. Also, if you guys haven't seen it recently, the not Strength of 1,000, Quest of the Frozen Flame trailer just dropped like today, and I'm currently playing it in it, and that I'm currently playing Quest of the Frozen Flame, and holy crap, did that trailer like blow my mind. I am so hyped to continue playing in it. All right, get Bardley up. Nice background music. I feel like we should be pretty calm today. I think calming music will work. Be good. Welcome everyone who's currently here. Wow, I am speaking really high voiced. Why you don't listen to your own what class would I like to take on a date, champion? Wait, hold on. Maybe Bard. I think I'd have the most fun with Bard, as Bard would probably give you a lot of like morale bonuses and stuff like that. But I think I'm only saying champion because it's my favorite class, and totally have no alternative like biases or no other biases. I think also Swashbuckler would be a great one to take on a date. I think especially if you're like a firebrand swashbuckler, the very much of the up and bold atom in your face. I love classes that are taking a very different approach to combat. I mean, obviously every class takes a very unique approach, which we're going to talk about. Don't get me wrong. But I love like the swashbuckler's like panache, like class feature in general. And I think Swashbuckler and Bard would probably be I feel like Wizards would be like, depending on which ones you either get like evil necromancy guys, which is like Sorcerer would be interesting. I could see Sorcerer. I think that also comes down to what bloodline. Because I think like, obviously like, for me, I think in this case it's going to be based on your personality. But if we're going straight off of what I know about the Pathfinder iconics, I think Bard and Swash would be my two going at them. So besides that, I think I should just start giving my opinions on things, and hopefully that will keep you guys entertained. So I'm going to establish some ground rules before we get started. 1, every class is a good class. Will not complain about any of them. I love all of my Pathfinder 2e classes. They are just freaking insane. Especially, I don't know if you guys have seen the first stream I did, but I will call every single class broken. This will be a theme for tonight. You could also You could also have ones of the Wellspring archetype. You want to talk about Wellspring archetype? I recently did a video on that. Not recently. And so besides like no class bashing, because obviously everybody has their own playstyles. I am very much a Gish person. I love being a little good at skills, a little bit good at defense, a little bit good at offense, some spells, 10 or more HP per level. Even when I'm playing an Oracle, it has to be 10 HP because Life Oracle is insane. Life Oracle is broken when it comes to healing support, rivaling that of the Cleric. And so I really think that we should get started with the Alchemists. What makes the Alchemist different than the rest of the classes? And why is it not just a wizard subclass? Because I've seen a lot of arguments being made. So, Alchemy, if you guys don't know, Alchemist back in first edition was extremely popular. It was in the Advanced Player's Guide. I personally loved it. It was right up there with Inquisitor. It was right up there with at the time, actually, Oracle was part of the Advanced Player's Guide. And I think what happens with Alchemist is a lot of people they look at it purely as, it obviously is a frontline fighter. Of course, it's got the HP for it. It obviously can just do it. It's got the bob, so it's obviously offense, and then you got the mutagenist. It's like, yeah, I think that the overall theme and feel of the Alchemist is completely unique, because I really don't think that any class can truly pull off the Alchemist the way that the class does on its own. Now, I say this now because we're going to go down the line and we're going to have later examples of why isn't the Druid and the Cleric just one class. And I think that the Alchemist is so unique in the way that they built Alchemist and Tui. And a lot of people go, well, they don't have their master proficiency in hitting, so obviously they're not a great to hit people. And no, the Alchemist class, I would argue, is the most versatile class in all of 2nd edition. I will fight the Thaumaturge on this one. It is insane. You can be offensive with Bomber or Mutagenist. You can be support class with Cryogen. At least I think that was what it was called. My brain is tired. And overall, and then yeah, especially if you want to do like a support, like long-term play, I think the Toxicologist is like amazing when it comes to just sheer like versatility. I think one thing that they have going for them is just how many like elixirs, bombs, alchemical reagents they can do. Like the amount of batches you can make in a single day, especially when you get to high levels, you can straight up just be like, I am an offensive support, morale giving alchemist. I will use my, quick alchemy. I'll make myself a mutagen, and then I will, chuck a bomb and then give a healing potion off to a friend. Think about what no other class can really do this. I mean, Bard technically can. Bard is in a weird place with the Warrior Muse. We'll conquer Bards when we get there, but I really think that the Alchemist is bringing its own unique flavor to it. And I really hope that going forward, when we see with the Alchemist, the reason why it needs to stand on its own and why it's not just another subclass or class archetype is because of how much branding, like uniquity, that it has to it. I'm hopefully I hope you guys are seeing where I'm kind of going with this. I love the versatility in it, and I would say Alchemist is A tier, straight up A tier. There's one class I have as S tier in my book, because of how much it's bringing to the table. However, Alchemists are a little rough to read at the first part. Like, doing an initial read, I think I can see a lot of new players being just like, whoa, all right, like, I gotta calculate reagents and, you know, not only because you're only tracking like 2 things at level 1. You're calculating your advanced alchemy and your reagents. There we go. Sorry. My brain just got completely blanked out on alchemist abilities. So you're definitely gonna see there. Otherwise, Paizo, please change the first of cryogen. Interesting. Okay, so not to argue with myself in this case with Deadly D8, but you said that, just for people who aren't reading chat, I do think a few alchemist feats should be features, but that's nitpicking. I think the core rulebook errata fixed a lot of that. I think especially with what was a perpetual alchemy, which lets you set your DCs immediately of whatever alchemy thing you're doing immediately to your level. Like, that was a must-have alchemist feat, and I really think with the errata they fixed up a lot of that, as well as giving, you know, medium armor proficiency, especially for those upfront mutagenist, because I feel like the mutagenist subclass is all about being up in your face. Some feats for alchemists should have been abilities they gained via subclass similar to champion. Interesting take. I think that's certainly a way of looking at it, but I would probably, in my opinion, I think it really depends on what feat you're talking about. I think like I said, the core rulebook errata really fixed a lot of this. Daily Trisha would make alchemists allowed cryogen use crafting to grab medicine feats. I would agree with that. I really would. But I think the same argument would have to go that you'd have to give the investigator methodology, their heal bot, what was it? Investigator. God, sorry, there are so many classes. Whatever the subclass that gives, forensic medicine. There we go. When you give I think if you did that, you'd have to also give that to anything that uses crafting based stuff for medicine. But overall, I think Alchemist really needs to stand on its own. Chat, what do you think about this? I'll give a quick second to see what you guys respond, because I really want to know who thinks it would be better as a class archetype. I don't think it would be anything as a class archetype. I can see like some arguments being for like Inventor should be a class archetype. I disagree with that as well. But I really think that the way that Champion currently is set up, oh my god, Alchemist. ADHD brain going insane right now. Okay, so what more can I say about the Alchemist? I did have a list of notes. So one of the other things why I wanted to talk about the uniqueness that comes with the Alchemist is because of their feats. So the Alchemist feat, like, selection allows, like I was mentioning before with versatility, allows further. So before I was mainly talking about their class features with the advanced reagents and their advanced alchemy stuff, but I really think that their feats is where the Alchemist really shines, because you could have things like Sticky Bomb. Now, for those who don't know, Sticky Bomb means you can let perpetual damage happen to a creature. We already know how stupid broken Recall Knowledge is. Alchemists exploit weaknesses like it's crazy. Because remember, even when you miss with an alchemical bomb, you are still going to hit that weakness, which means if they're like weakness 20 to a certain type of damage, you're immediately going to see that damage start increasing like crazy, because all you need to do is 1 damage. That's like 21-ish damage on a turn, just on a miss. Imagine if you hit with that or crit with that. Alchemists really do a great job in exploiting their weaknesses. I don't think yeah, I think that the overall feel of the Alchemist is it works well as being extremely versatile, but then also having to do is using recall knowledge. Now, granted, this is something that the Thaumaturge is going to do a lot better of a job at. The Thaumaturge is going to definitely immediately start. It's all about weaknesses. Well, we'll get into the Thaumaturge probably at the later half of the stream, only because those are playtests. I don't know anything about it. I begged Paizo to let me see them. I still have not. So I cannot speak to Psychic and Thaumaturge. But from what I've seen so far with the playtest, is that the Thaumaturge is really going to take Alchemists, and I think an Alchemical Thaumaturge is going to be the ultimate, like, exploit weakness, perpetual, like, consistent damage. And I really think this is where we're going to start seeing a lot of the Pathfinder the Pathfinder combat system really start shining when it comes to multi-classing and archetypes. Alchemist plus Sticky Bomb equals plus what enemy weakness equals GG. Yep. So I used to run with a level 10 Alchemist in one of my parties, and I would throw monsters at them that would have weaknesses, and all it took was one very good recall knowledge, and it was just gone. Like, the overall just combat was immediately thrown out, because they're like, ah, yes, I use one action to quick alchemy, and then chuck it at him. GM, I did 25 points of damage on a failure. I don't think any other class can really do that. I really don't. And hello, welcome. If you're just catching us, we're talking about alchemists. We're talking about alchemy, all that fun stuff. And I think what's nice about the way that 2nd edition has really brought up the alchemist is, let's compare it even to its 1E counterpart. In 1st edition, you're not really brewing items. You're just using spells. And I really love that they removed the spell casting, like, aspect to the alchemist. It's gone. I love that we're crafting items on the fly. And I think this is really what sets it apart from the inventor, is because the inventor is all about using a specific tool. And I mean, granted, there are, like, feats that allow for, like, chiasma, digits and gizmos and all that stuff. But I think the alchemist has won up because they're instantly crafting anything up to their maximum level. Think about it. What would happen if you gave the wizard an ability where they instantly auto heighten all of their spells to 10th level, excluding cantrips? I know somebody's gonna go cantrips, excluding cantrips. Imagine if you let Burning Hands and Magic Missile go all the way up to level 10 just by purely casting it. No other class does that. Only the alchemist can bring all of their class abilities all the way up to level 20. Or if we were talking about this in a spellcaster, besides focus spells and cantrips, imagine giving spell slots an instant auto heighten immediately to 10. I think that's what we're going to start seeing a lot of, where the multi-class is, because when you're going into the multi-class archetype for alchemists, what you're doing is you're basically guaranteeing yourself a level of success. You're a barbarian, let's say, perhaps, and you decide to multi-class alchemist. Well, great. Now you have access to all the Muginist feats, because all you have to do is just boop, pop. I already got quick alchemy. That's a feat. I believe it's level 6, and you're instantly pulling off insane alchemist abilities, and you're like, oh, I have rage, drink this potion, and then now I'm in a mega rage. You understand me? I really think that when certain classes really benefit from the alchemist, such as, like, champions, like if you're running out of lay on hands, boom, quick alchemy, here is a potion of elixir of life, here's a healing potion. And I really think that overall, the way that alchemists generally function is that you're going to see when it comes to the archetype is a lot more versatility, because it's instantly unlocking it. Where classes like Bard, let's take Bard for example. Bards are extremely versatile in the fact that they are a debuff and support class. They're Dirge of Doom, they're Inspire Courages, all great support, like, system-based stuff. But I think that when you add in an alchemist, multi-class into the actual brew itself, into like the bard class, what are you doing? You're just further enhancing whoever the bard is. I think that's where you're starting to see the brilliancy of the Pathfinder 2nd Edition alchemists. Fighters, if you're complaining that you're if you're like an up and close alchemist and you're complaining about getting hit, guess what? Start out as a fighter, multi-class alchemist. Literally, legendary proficiency to hit with bombs. I don't know. I think at that point you're a little broken. Broken in a good way in this case. But overall, I think that starting to see some of the base classes mix that versatility into their like class features and classes is just incredible. Because obviously, okay, so like you pointed out, Juggernaut Mutagen gives more temp HP than Barbarian Rage. Think about getting that temp HP on a fighter. Like straight up. And I think that with the overall, you could essentially get the effects of Rage without ever needing multi-class. Start with the Alchemist purely for bookkeeping perspective. With such wide access to items, I feel like I had to keep track of every item. Okay, so this is something I covered more on the Deadly D8 TikTok. I'm hopefully going to cover this more as I start making more content with it. But I think a lot of people, when they're approaching classes like this, and, you know, like the Cleric, the Wizard, any spellcastery classes, because I would call the Alchemist essentially a meta spellcaster. Because that's what they do. They have infinite spell slots. Not infinite, but you know what I mean. They have a buttload. And then all they're doing is, what I would honestly think you should do is just keep a small list. You don't need to do, you know, hunt down every item. I know a lot of people like doing that. And if that is something you want to do, that's your playstyle, go ahead. Great. I'm never going to argue with that. I really like the idea that the formula book is what keeps everything centered. Having access to every single item is going to overwhelm you. I completely agree. But I think if you keep a core theme to your character, it's going to be very easy. Because if I'm saying, okay, here is my alchemist, I am a up-close alchemist, I love mutagens, and I'm only going to focus on mutagens. Well, great. Now you don't really need to worry about taking, you know, greater alchemist fire. You don't need to do that. You just take a greater mutagen of whatever you're already specializing in. So you're not really, I think a great way for new players to approach spellcasters and approaching the alchemist specifically is to make sure that you are condensing it down to a list of just essential things. I know a lot of people like having that versatility, and if that's what you really want, then great. I think that's something you should have. But overall, if you are going into the Alchemist and you're a new player, or you're a GM who's about to run with the new team of players, straight up just give them a small list and just be like, okay, in your session 0, if you're an experienced GM, just go, okay, I know what I'm talking about. So tell me, what do you want your alchemist to do? If you want to get an overall versatile alchemist, great. Just give them a little bit of a healing potion. Give them alchemist fire, tangle bag, and just let them run with that. I think that if you can keep yourself down to a theme, I think that really, really helps. I'll cover more when we start hitting the cleric and, you know, the more prepared spellcasters. But I think that if you keep an overall just general list of here's things I specifically like doing. I love being support. I'm going to make sure I, you know, do an elixir of life and healing potions and make sure that my formula book reflects that. And so I don't have to go search through the core rule book, search through the million of items that are in 2nd edition. I understand, because I've rolled up new characters before. It could look quite intimidating, especially if you're going to roll up an alchemist, which has to do with a lot of that item list. And I think if you keep that if there's anything we're going to take away from the alchemist, is if you keep it to a central theme for your character, it's going to get a lot less overwhelming as your system mastery starts taking into place. I think I'm done talking about alchemists. I think you guys got my point. Alchemist A tier. strictly amazing. I think we should start talking about my other favorite class. I'm going to say favorite classes. I introduce all of them. Guys, let's talk about barbarians. Big, beefy boys, barbarians. I love barbarians. Barbarians are one of my favorite classes in 2e. It was, in fact, my first 2nd edition playtest character was a Miri, because the Pathfinder playtest was announced, and I didn't get to choose my character when going to Gen Con because I was running late. But I already bought my ticket, so I showed up, and everybody else had chosen all the other classes I wanted to play, and I got saddled with the barbarian, and within 2 minutes, I wish you guys could see like a brain reader, as like my thoughts immediately race across my brain of just seeing that playtest character sheet and going, oh, I get a buttload of damage at level 1 when I rage. Because Amiri, if you don't know, is a Titan Instinct Barbarian, which means Greatsword, which means rage damage is insane, because your Titan, which I believe it gives you 4 or 6 at level 1. Because when Titans rage, they also become Clumsy 1, which is a downsize, but yeah, sorry, rage damage is 6. That is insane. I think that's a little broken. Chat, I think you can all agree with me. This is slightly broken in the sense that barbarians are legit awesome. Now, to tie it back to the central theme of why I'm talking about this today, is why isn't barbarian a fighter class archetype? Because I don't know if you guys know, but back in the early days of Dungeons & Dragons, you're seeing a fighting man. That is a class. It is the fighting man in 1st edition. It's the fighter in 2nd edition, and then continues to be. And then the monk was a cleric fighter prestige class. You don't know what prestige classes is? Go pick up 3rd edition. But besides that, the barbarian wasn't really. I believe, if I remember my Dungeons & Dragons history, it wasn't a thing until Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition. And then it was further expanded upon in Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition as it became its own class. So why isn't the barbarian a fighter? Look at Conan, Conan the Barbarian, right? That guy's he's definitely a barbarian, don't get me wrong, it's in his name, the barbarian. But he exhibits a lot of fighter tendencies. In fact, what is a barbarian besides a big beefy guy or girl, or non-binary, whatever your character identifies as, with a giant F-off sword? And so, I think the reason why the barbarian differs in thematically with the fighter and the overall class itself is that the barbarian is bringing something new to the table, and it's called rage. Now, back in 1st edition, and I'm going to flex some 1E knowledge here, and we talked about this with Donut last stream, is the barbarian used to get a +2 bonus to strength and constitution, and +4 bonus to constitution and a +2 morale bonus on will saves, but they take a -2 penalty to arm class. Yes, I'm quoting the song because that's the only way I can remember it, but essentially they used to get a bonus to hit, damage, and their hit point maximum would instantly increase. Now, why doesn't this work for 2e? Great question, I hear you ask. Number 1, adjusting ability scores is gone. I love that. I love that it's gone. I used to run with, there's a AP called Rain of Winter. It had a lot of Fey abilities that were just dropping ability score changes. I was playing a druid. It was absolutely a nightmare. I really don't want to get back into those days. I'm so glad we moved away from it. Because as more mechanics to just an archetype, I know they are tanky marshals that rage and hit hard. Granted. But I think that a lot of people can really just look at them and don't see that, per se. Obviously, they see rage, get swole, hit hard. Granted, they are very good at that. But fighters can get thematically bad. You can piss off a fighter and then get crit smacked into oblivion. I've been on the other end of that crit smacking. It hurts. Because fighters, stupid broken. And so, The Barbarian differs in thematics is I like with second edition specifically is Barbarians don't hit accurately. They're going to hit hard, but they're not aiming. And so I make this joke that if I get angry and want to chuck my 640-page core rulebook at somebody, I'm not going to aim. I'm just going to hurl it and hope to God it hits. I do the same thing when, having to, break wood, because I live in the Northeast. It is cold. Sometimes you gotta limber up to get warm. I say this as it literally snowed 6 inches today. It was very cold out all day. But if you're angry, you're not going to be precise. And I love that about 2e, is that there's no +1 status bonus to attack rolls with it. It is just a straight damage buff and temp HP. Con plus your level, I believe. Don't quote me on this. I'm not going to check archives. But there are ways of recreating the Barbarian purely through blast feats in the fighter. Power attack. We all love us some power attack. That is a very fightery feel. In fact, I have thrown power attack on some of my Barbarians that I've played throughout my history. Or some of my monsters who were Barbarians and needed power attack, because power attack plus rage equals a headache for who was ever on the receiving end of it. And so, a lot of people, and I've seen some of this discourse go to it with Barbarians, is that it could be a fighter. And I think that overall, what Barbarian brings to the table is how they rage and their instincts, which I will give credit to 2nd edition. Their instincts all feel unique, except for Fury, which if you saw my last stream, you obviously know my thoughts on Fury, but to reiterate, the Fury was a bit of a letdown. However, I did discover one feat that changed it slightly for me. It is a level 16 feat where if you get critically, if somebody critically hits you, you can immediately use your reaction and hit them back. I love that. I love that reaction. I really wish there was more Fury feats. I think overall Fury is I would say butt compared to some of the other ones. But I think flavor-wise, it's not bringing as much as, let's say, Spirit or Superstition. I know somebody in this chat that plays a superstitious Barbarian. I don't know how they pull it off. That is a subclass way beyond me. I don't like anti-magic barbs or just classes in general. I am very much I love running around, swinging my sword, and if I cast some magic, I love it. And then to continue on with another point I've written down was how do I put this? The Barbarian in, I believe, I can't remember if it's from 1st edition or 5e, so pardon me here, is when it comes to specific instincts, the way that it's currently set up is... Okay, sorry. No, I remember my point now. I am so sorry, guys. It has been an extremely long day for me. I wanted to talk about Blood Rager. That was a 1st edition class. I was trying to remember what book it was from. It was from Ultimate Class Guide. So, Blood Rager. I hope Chad agrees with me in here. The Blood Rager is a class from 1st edition that essentially let you cast spells while you were raging. This has been something I really wish I could see come back to 2nd edition. And the developers at Paizo have already explained how to do it, and I think technically it will work. So what you do is you build up whatever Instinct Barbarian, and then you take Moment of Clarity, which means you're going to sacrifice a lot of action economy for spells. I think that's overall... I've had a conversation with 1 or 2 Paizo freelancers. I think this is overall a kind of solid way of balancing it out. Imagine, okay, guys. Imagine if your Barbarian got Horizon Thunder Sphere. Imagine going 2 rounds of you're raging while Kami Kamehameha blasting whatever is in your way. Like compared to animal, giant, dragon, like it's not a contest. Yep, totally 100% agree. And so I think what sets the barbarian, that's in purely thematic standpoints compared to any other class, is how you can draw that anger well into your role playing. I love role playing with barbarians because that just means you can be pissed all of the time. Insert I'm always angry Hulk gif here. And so I think that when it comes to role playing with barbarians, having a perpetually pissed off person is kind of fun. I won't lie. That is a fun little pleasure for me of just being slightly of a butt to the party because I'm mad. I don't know whatever narratively happened to you that make you mad. Just constantly remind your party of it. Just being it's like, yeah, my parents died to dragons and now I'm just pissed. And they're like, yeah, we've heard it 20 times now. Thanks, buddy. And like the guy who dart blood, like who just rages in the corner at all times, just being like that one. We all have that. Like, I wouldn't say we all have that one. We all know somebody who's just like perpetually has that barbarian vibe. This is very much of a me thing, or at least I do. And so I think when it comes to role playing with a barbarian, a lot of people just get tied up in big, beefy person who can hit really, really hard. I think bringing in the rage aspect to their actual, what they're bringing to role playing is really, really smart. And when it comes to your instinct, having that all change depending on it. If you are a superstitious blood rager, and I'm going to call on Eli for this one, because I don't know. Well, yeah, we're just going to call on Eli. So if you're playing Strength of 1,000 and you are a superstitious barbarian, it's not, like I said before, not for me. But I think that when it comes to overall, like bringing in that superstition to your character, if I'm playing Strength of 1,000, I'm playing superstitious for whatever reason. Having it being, I'm just straight up afraid of magic while I'm at this magic school is something you could really see something get kind of taken to very narrative places. Especially if you have a good GM, you can start seeing where your magic, why you're afraid of magic. What makes you, like when you see magic specifically makes you tick. So I think like a good way of doing it is I don't like seeing my friends get hurt by magic. So when I see somebody casting spells, I'm instinctually aware of that. Oh my god, spells can hurt my friends. I don't like it when my friends get hurt, so I'm going to go into a rage. And I think with, I don't know Strength of 1,000s, so there is going to be a no spoiler thing here. But if you are you're probably going to encounter some spellcasters easily. I imagine it's like Hogwarts. You're going to be fighting other spellcasters. And having that, overall, I don't want to see my friends get hurt, so I'm going to rage, is a fun and very narrative way of bringing in people. And bringing in, not only that, but also your party. I think this is all I'm going to say a barbarian. I'm going to just read the chat, see if I missed anything. But I'm super hoping Blood Rager comes back as a class archetype at some point. Yeah, I agree. I think it could, it would be definitely interesting. I think I kind of agree with some of the people I've talked to. I just stated on my point. And I think we should move on to the Bard class. Now, Bards, the people I'm willing to apparently go on a date with. Because, let's just admit, their charisma is just so nice. They're very charismatic. That was the word I was looking for. So, why aren't bards just sorcerers? I've thought about this. If I was going to make a bard into a class archetype, you'd probably have to make it sorcerer. And so, what distincts bard from the rest of the classes when it comes to it? And I think what it is their debuff and buff system. Now, the divine list can give you some of your overall buff and debuff, but no one does it like sorcerers can. Not sorcerers, barbarians. Ugh, bards. Holy crud, I could speak English tonight. So, what do bards bring to the table when it comes to their buffs and debuffs? Obviously, you got some great ones. Dirge of Doom, and Inspire Courage, Inspire Defense. All great overall support and debuff abilities. I don't think any other class can really pull this off. I think when it comes to pure support, Life Oracles can truly get you into some of the healing, as well as clerics being very, very good at healing, or clerics being very, very good at harming. We will cover evil clerics in a hot second. Bards are cool. I like how muses are very flexible, and subclasses is how you're inspiring others. Yes. Okay. So, controversial take. We're gonna get right into some controversy. Warrior Muse Bard is one of my favorite bards to play. I love me some Warrior Muses bards. So, why do I love that? Because people just look at, well, they're not good at hitting very well, which is arguable. You're probably like, I think, a point or two off when it comes to compared to other martial classes. But you also have spell list galore. And because you have your spells, it kind of makes sense that you have less connection, I guess, to your martial side. And so I think, like, okay, so take Strongest Strength, which is a second level Dirge of Doom. Yeah. It's a second level cantrip for bards. It's only one action. You have a 6-foot emanation, and the duration is 1 round. You and your allies gain a +1 status bonus to athletics against and to your DCs against actions such as disarm, shove, and trip. Hear me out, chat. If you have a knock them down barbarian, this is perfect. If you also specify purely in athletics, because you are a warrior muse on top of your performance, this is going to be amazing. Because all you have to do is just shove or trip, and you're immediately going to see some great results. And people go, probably you're looking at it like, oh, I don't know. Think about it. Dirge of Doom on a warrior muse, you're instantly going to be seeing some. Well, one, it's a great debuff. You're instantly lowering your enemy's AC for not only you, for the rest of the party, which lets you then go run up and hit them. I think Warrior Muse is definitely a remnant of the Scald class from first edition. Yeah. Okay, so Adam just made a really good point in chat. If you only make one strike on a turn, you don't need that as good of a bonus. Which is exactly my point. Because you're also going to be spellcasting. If you're using a Warrior Muse as a pure offensive martial, yeah, it's going to suck. But why are you playing a Warrior Muse at that point? Just multi-class Bard. Seriously, I genuinely don't know why you treat your Warrior Muse as a straight up martial class. It doesn't work. You can't compare Warrior Muse against Fighter. But all you're really doing is you just need one good hit. And that's all you're going to do. Because you just need a. Here's how I do a turn. I've never played, but I would Demoralize, Inspire Courage, Strike. You have the Charisma to pull off Intimidation. You buff your party by casting Inspire Courage. And then you immediately can follow that up with a pretty good strike and have pretty good chances of hitting. There's your warrior right there. Oh boy. So, in conclusion for bards, bard very good at inspiring everybody. Very, very good support. I really like that you have so much access to. I keep saying versatility, but that's what 2e prides itself on, is being so versatile. And overall, will recommend bards to anyone. Now, let's talk champion. So for those who aren't aware, I released a new Pathfinder Infinite product called Champion Reborn. Champions Without Alignment. If you haven't picked it up, it's a great book. Only $6. What a deal for a whole class. And I love... I'm not going to get into that comment. I love Champion. Champion for me, S tier class. Instantly, I love me some Champion. I love the narrative role-playing that comes with Champion. I love everything that has to do with champions. One of my favorite parts about it is, one, their connection. I won't lie, I'm religious. I'm a religious person, and having a class that really exalts all of that really helps for at least me, because I come from that kind of a background. I really love having a class that has to do with religion, because that is just something I can pull off role-playing wise. I really think that also champions are one of the great offensive support classes, right up there with the gunslinger. Now, if you don't remember, gunslingers are also support-ish. They're, depending on which one you took for your subclass. But this is another one of those, why isn't this just a class archetype? Or why isn't it just a class archetype? So I was talking earlier in chat on the dd8 server, and I won't call out any GMs or specifically say anybody, but I saw that a GM in particular was only allowing champions to be fighters with the Blessed One archetype. Very interesting take, by the way. But this did also prompt a little bit of a reason for the stream, is kind of talking about the implications of doing this. The champion brings more than just lay on hands. And I really, really hope that you guys see this. Even ruling out my very new Pathfinder Infinite Supplement, Champions Reborn, Champions Without Alignment class, you are going to save your party's butt more than once. I main champions. When I roll up a new 2e character, I often have to fight with myself to not be a champion, because they're great at kiting. For those who don't know, kiting is when you kind of bait your monster to come to you. Your incredibly high armor class will cover you. I play a level 6 character. My armor class is 26 with shield raised. I am not getting hit, and if I do, it's rarely a crit, unless the encounter is stupid broken. But I have a crap ton in shield HP. Retributive Strike on my Paladin is extremely fun. And I really dismissed Liberator Champion for quite some time. But it is strong. Not as strong as I would say some of the evil ones are. I think the Tyrant's ability to immediately cause somebody to drop prone, you stack that with Attack of Opportunity, if it gets back to your turn and they haven't like stood up yet, I think you could really start seeing some great role-playing options. And I really like, with the way that causes are set up, is every cause brings something so unique to the table that you're not going to really see two champions of the same like build. And I think free archetype, or just archetypes in general, really causes champions to go insane, because they arguably have some of the best class features in the game. They have the highest armor progression, so you're not going to get hit. They have a very good weapons progression, so you're also going to hit. And then they also have spellcasting, and they have... My stream just died? Okay. Sorry. YouTube being a little weird. the yeah, okay. So the archetypes will let you really play into your cause. And that's something I really enjoyed about Champion is you're going to essentially playing a tank. And if you throw things like Smite, Good and Evil into the mix, you're really going to start seeing those Champion tank numbers, like in terms of damage, immediately go up. And if you buy Champion Reborn, a Champion class without alignment, you're going to get access to feats such as Smite, which will really benefit your champion, as you are going to start seeing a lot of, I guess, flavor start coming out of it because of how just unique it is. I really also like about this with just Paladins in 5th edition, for example. Now, I know we're primarily 2e stream, but I'm going to have to just address some of the other games in the room. Believe it or not, there is more than just Pathfinder. Just ignore all of this and the wrong hand. Just ignore everything behind me. There are other games. So, I think when it comes to 5th edition, something I really, really admire is just how unique their Paladin oaths really feel. I really love that there's an ancient Paladin where you are going to be a nature Paladin. One of the ones that was in UA that I loved running with was Treachery, which is a very I don't mess with oaths. I'm going to do whatever I want. I benefit from just benefiting me. I used to run with one of those when I converted it into 2nd edition. Super fun. Highly suggest. And so I think that's what really brings champions in general into the fold. Imagine a champion of Rovagug. What does that look like? I think you can really start messing around with some great role-playing opportunities when it comes to just how much you can flavor each champion. And I will repeat this again, champions are way more than just laying hands. What differs champion from, let's say, fighter is champions are more about the religious aspect. And I think playing a lawful good champion really gets to bring some interesting stories out, as well as just champions of other alignments. But I really love playing lawful good because you get to test around with what does it mean to be lawful good? Where do you draw your certain tenets? What do you find acceptable that maybe somebody else doesn't? What does lawful good look like for a champion of Desna versus a champion of Calistria? Which I think is a great segue into, we're going to cover 2 classes in one, Druids and Clerics. Here's a common argument I was recently having a very insightful conversation with somebody on our Discord. I think the reason why Clerics and Druids differ is their way of going about getting their powers. I'm sure a lot of us have heard this distinction, but I really just want to reiterate for anybody who's new in the room. Clerics are people of the cloth. They go to their deity, and the bond there is one of servitude. Druids aren't that. You cannot do that with a druid. Druids have a respect between both nature and themselves. A cleric sees themselves as a servant, a vessel for the divine. They're acting as if they were their deity, which I understand. I love doing that when I play clerics. But when I think what the difference between that and the druid is, a druid communes with nature. They are instantly aware of their surroundings. They respect it. It's built on a mutual respect. That's why I really like the green faith isn't a religion, it's a philosophy. That the idea that some philosophies in Galarian or in your Pathfinder 2e games can be so strong, they are themselves just it's the level of gods. They obviously both have a lot of overlap. Both prepared casters. They both. Okay, I'm gonna address that comment in a quick second. They both are very good at support. The primal spell list does allow for a little bit of support. Granted, The Divine spell list is so much stronger when it comes to support and debuff, whereas the Druids are a little bit more access to Blaster power. So I've covered this before, but I want to talk about that. Clerics do not need another subclass. They don't. I really like the way that it's set up. You don't build your cleric based on what subclass you take. You build your cleric based on what feats you take. All your subclass is really doing is, am I really good at hitting things, or am I really good at casting spells? And I think that's why you just need two, because you could build everything else up with your feats. And I think that's why you see in the APG, for example, you never see a third doctrine. You just get access to a lot of feats. I really think that's where the cleric can shine, is because every cleric gets to feel unique because you're building up that. I think wizards have the same case, where your subclass isn't based off of just what subclass you take with your arcane thesis and your arcane school. It's also what feats you took specifically. And I know that a very good example of a person covering this is the Disaster Tour Guide. If you guys don't know who Disaster Tour Guide is, I watch a lot of his content. He does a great job of explaining things. ISO devs say that their cleric subclass is their deity and shit like that. I think, yeah, it's also another great subclass look, is your deity also directly affects what you are gaining. What spells you get, for instance. I used to play both a cleric of Calistria and a cleric of Iomedae. Those felt like two very different types of clerics. I could stat them out with the same feats, with the same everything, but just change their deities and they're instantly completely two unique characters. And I think the Druid kind of fits in that as well, because the Druid isn't just wild shape anymore. The Druid respects all of nature, but then more so gains a bond with a specific type of nature. Is it the sky? Is it fire? Is it the earth? Is it an animal? Is it with the changing of yourself? Because obviously we needed to bring back wild shape. Wild shape is awesome. Stupid broken, but it's cool. And I think that's why these two classes need to be different. Is one is based on mutual trust, like the Druid, and one is based on servitude. Druids are not servants of nature, they respect nature. And then if you wanted to get primal if you want to get fightery with it, they're on a ranger, because ranger is an offensive druid. So the next two I'm going to cover together as well. Fighter and gunslinger. We're going alphabetically, of course. What is a gunslinger but a fighter with a gun? They both, just from basic looks, they both have the same attack progression. They're both very good at hitting things. They're both offensive. But what makes the two different? And I believe that the gunslinger is more support than it is attack. Granted, fatal trait. Fatal is nasty. I've played a gunslinger in a few one-shots. I've seen what gunslingers can do. When gunslinger crit, it hurt. That being said, it cannot be a fighter class archetype. I know in 5th edition that gunslingers are a fighter subclass. If that's what 5e wants to do, I'm going to let 5e do that. But in 2nd edition specifically, the gunslinger cannot function as a class archetype. I thought it was. When I went to go homebrew gunslinger before gunslingers were a thing, because that's what everybody was doing. Don't point fingers at me. I thought it was going to be a class archetype. Looking how they designed the gunslinger in 2nd edition, I am so happy I was wrong. I love the fact that the gunslinger chooses their subclass based on what weapon they want to do or how they approach combat, because Wave of Sniper is no longer like you only get benefits if you're using a sniper weapon, or at least a weapon that has a sniper trait. It's only one during the playtest. It's very much of how quick do you react. One shot, one kill. I can use any benefits with just a pistol. which you could also get your cowboy expansion with the Gunsmoke, because I'm gonna just keep plugging away my Pathfinder Infinite products, as I was told to. And I think that when approaching these two, fighters are very good at all weapons. What I really like about fighter, and I don't remember who said this, it was some former Pathfinder streamer, I don't remember their name. I apologize now. But one thing I really like about the fighter is, you know, starting your combat by shooting a longbow, moving up closer, and then switching to a polearm, and then if you have to get even closer, switching to a short sword, and being really good at doing that. I think that's why quick draw is very good for a fighter. If you can get quick draw on a fighter, you're instantly going to start seeing some of that specialization. You can start seeing how you build up your playstyle, because the way that fighters specifically work is you can turn a fighter into a very versatile character depending on what feats you take. You can also then specify. I know here at dd8 we have done actually a video on fighter, also featuring Nonat1s, because Nonat1's giant friend of the channel. We love Nonat1s over here. And I think specifically that the Gunslinger does not do this. Gunslinger, as in the name, is very good at firing guns. They are very much pew-pew cowboy noises. And I think that the way that is currently set up is you build your fighter depending on what you want to be able to do with it, and you build your gunslinger depending on how much support you want to do with it. You can very much build an attack gunslinger. It is possible, such as Wade the Sniper or Vanguard, but you do not have that level of versatility. And I think if you made it a class archetype like the way I originally did, you will not see the benefits of it being a unique and distinct class. Also makes, I'm also going to admit this, as a freelancer, it makes writing new subclasses so much easier when it comes to gunslingers. I really like, because there's so many different types of firearms. You have the hybrid ones that you get from Guns and Gears. You have long range. You have capacity guns. You have a whole bunch of just different types of weapons that if I really just sat down with the Guns and Gears book alone, I could probably churn out 4 or 5 gunslinger subclasses, like, easily, because of just how versatile guns are. And then you have the Beast Gunner archetype that you get from Guns and Gears, because when you need more guns, you gun. And then you have Spell Shot, which will give you magic bullets and stuff like that, which lets you expose an enemy's weakness. And then you have a whole bunch of just, oh my god, then you get the Bullet Dancer. Guns and Gears is an insane book. I love me some Sniping Duo. I will go to Twitter about it and talk about Sniping Duo. Alright, I think we're going to take a quick break as I go get some water. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about monks. And why monk isn't fighter. Because I've seen this argument, and I will cover that in a second. But for now, I hope you guys enjoy watching the recent Sniping Duo, because this is a very good transition into that. Sniping Duo archetype from Pathfinder 2nd Edition. I'll be right back. It'll only be like 2 or 3 minutes, so stick around and use the bathroom if you need, whatever you need to do. I'll see you on the other end. And they say the way of the fist is the truest way to punch. Welcome back, everybody. I mostly wanted to get past that triangulation bit, because honestly, I love that. I remember in the editing room seeing that come out and just being absolutely loving it. But I brought along the core rulebook and monks, one of my favorite classes from 2nd edition. Yeet that 640-page book right there. So, monk. What can monk do? So, what distinguishes a monk compared to the other classes is monks are not just punch. I know, I'm blowing minds right now. Monks are about the inner reflection of one's self. And I know it's a common joke that fighters can punch better than monks. And if you really want to go that route, sure. Math wise, they can. But they cannot do it as well as a monk. They can hit as better than a monk. But with flurry of blows and with stunning fist, flurry of maneuvers, you are just going to see some insane monks. So monks approaching it thematically is you're going to worry about reflection upon yourself. A monk is just a often try to figure out a good way of phrasing this, but I'd like calling it a wholeness of body. Yes, cue the feet here. And so I think that when taking a look at the monk, it's when it comes from a role playing perspective, is you are all about dedicating your body and training it to become the best that it possibly can be. You are going to immediately focus on honing your abilities into yourself. There are support monks. I'm not going to talk about them, but you're going to one have one of the greatest armor classes. You immediately start out as expert. So if you're complaining that fighters are getting a +2 bonus to hit compared to everyone else, imagine having a +2 bonus to armor class. You're not getting hit. And so I think what distinguishes the monk compared to some of the other classes is that you are honing one's ability. It's all about the like how do I put this? Monk in second edition is you're gonna worry about bringing out the best in yourself. And I think that's a great way of looking at this narratively. I've done martial arts before, and studying it has been a or depending on what obviously what style you're going for here, but the way that it's going to work is you focus on achieving one's perfected self. What is the mastering of your mind, whether it is the mastering of your body, it's all about control. And monks work super well when it comes to control. I think that monks, obviously, your monk subclass is specifically what stance you take. Is it monastic archer? Is it tiger? Is it raining embers? Is it wolf stance? I really like the idea that you are mastering your body to emulate one of these uh either animals or in some specific cases like the monastic archer. I will cover how that's different in a second. But when in those stance, I really like the way that you're just emulating it. For anyone in chat who likes the Power Rangers, uh I remember there is the Power Ranger like animal. I can't remember what it's called now. Jungle Morph, I think. But that was very much a and using your I like looking at it as your specific stance is going to emulate the abilities of that animal, hence why it's called the stance name. Now, when it comes to specifically monastic archers, and I will talk about monastic archers because they used to be Zen archers from first edition. I love both editions getting their ways in handling it. But I think the way that Aizo has handled monastic archery is insane because you get flurry of blows with your bow. Now it's a flurry of bows. And the way I like looking at this right now is I was told a story from a former master of mine of there are bows that are about 10 feet like tall. Like they're giant bows that these specific martial artists would train for, and it takes years of honing your body and dedication to getting you to be able to fire one of these because the arrows are about God, I can't even get it in frame. maybe this long, maybe a little longer. And so what you're doing is you are going, it takes an immense amount of strength to even pull back the drawstring, let alone fire accurately. And these martial artists specifically would use years, and I mean actual years, of getting their bodies to be able to pull back the drawstring and then aim. And this, and that's why I really think monks do very well compared to some of the other classes. A fighter is going to master a lot of different weapons, but a monastic archer is going to spend time with their bow. They're going to spend years figuring out how to precisely shoot with it, and while also honing their body. They're meditating through this. I've run with monastic archers in my parties before, and treating their bow as an extension of oneself means you also have to let the bow become you. If you understand what I'm trying to say, is you're spending that much time with it. You're treating a bow as it's an extension of yourself, because that's what most of martial arts will treat you, is I guess weapons are an extension of oneself. And what I love about monks is you are specifically focusing on a particular stance. And granted, there are feats that lets you essentially get the benefits of two stances at once. I think that's really, really cool, narrative-wise, if you're studying multiple stances. But if you want to do something more like Ip Man, and you are, jumping between Wing Chun and, I know he primarily does Wing Chun in the Ip Man series, but my point is, if you want to be a monk who, switches styles, and, can bob and weave with, maybe as I see an enemy get closer, I go to crane stance, but then as I start switching into my offensive, I switch into ape stance, start using a lot of athletic abilities, and I really like that. And I like that you switch your stance depending on what style of combat you're going to approach. All right, do you want to be a little bit more of I'm gonna stand my ground and I'm not gonna hit? Great, we have a whole stance just dedicated to it, the Iron Mountain stances. But I really like that you can go from Iron Mountain stance as a single action and then immediately switch to Tiger stance, and you're going to start benefiting from that. Hey, welcome to the stream. We are talking about monks right now. So, for those who don't also know about D&D history, and because Pathfinder does stem from Dungeons & Dragons, I'm still going to cover this, is monks used to also then be a half fighter, half cleric. It was a prestige class. So you're taking that mastery of dedication, respect, prayer from the cleric, and you're also getting because we gotta admit, it's fun punching things, right, guys? I mean, flurry of blows exists for a reason. It's very fun to go pop out. Cue bow from Critical Role noises here. And so I think what really separates these two from the fighter and the monk is how much the monk is going to spend time reflecting, and you gain a lot of wisdom. And I think a fun example I like looking at is why the monk differentiates itself is Rogue One. I don't know if you guys know, I'm a bit of a Star Wars fan. And in Rogue One, you have God, don't make me bring up character names because I will forget them all. You have the blind monk, and you have the big, beefy gunslinger, probably Way of the Vanguard if I had to build them now. Assuming you're down the line, I'm just patiently waiting for Summoner. We're going to get to Summoner in a second. We got to cover Magus's next, because I skipped a letter. And so, the kind of feel that I really like going with the monk in the case of Rogue One is the line, trust in the Force and Force trusts in me. I'm one with the Force and the Force is with me. is that mantra. I love giving my monks a mantra that they go by. And I think that's how you can specifically get more role playing out of it, because you have so many stances that you could get into. And, you know, well, maybe while you're in tiger stance, you're giving yourself a mantra of being like swift like the tiger. And then if you switch to viper stance, you're like, but sting like a viper. And then, you know, switch to wolf, and, you know, go on and so forth until, you know, and I love having that. Or in the case of Rogue One, it's I'm one with the force and the force is with me, as, you know, he is using his monastic I got martial, I don't even remember the name of the subclass, sorry, stance, where you're using monastic weaponry. Is that what it's called? Monastic weaponry? But he's using a staff while he's like absolutely kicking butt. And I think that that's what draws me most to monk, is one, the self-respect. Monks are often improving on themselves, where champions might hold other people to their level. Monks don't really also have to do that. Your monk could just be I'm a backstreet brawler. I learned how to be a monk because I was punching things and I got really, really good at it. If you want to go with the brawler monk, yeah, go ahead. I would love to see that. But I think that if you're going with a very rules is written, you know, I don't want to say stereotypical, because monks aren't really like held into a box. But I think that if I was going to give any advice to new monk players, maybe having that mantra of I'm one with the force and the force is with me. I hope you guys like Star Wars. If you haven't seen Star Wars yet, I just apologize. I apologize for like the last 2-minute rant that we just got right there. All right, Magus. But Magus, I don't know how you pronounce it. I'm going to call it Magus. I like calling it Magus. Magus. So, one way you could build a Magus is being a wizard and multi-classing fighter, or being a fighter and multi-classing wizard. Don't. I really love... Well, I don't say don't as in don't do it. That's a really fun build. I've seen it pulled off, and it's really, really fun. But if you were going to build a ish class, I think that the Magus and the Summoner is a great stepping stone on how to do that. And so, I say this with certainty that what sets the Magus apart from both a fighter and the wizard is the wizard's going to see the utility. They're going to see the study of magic. A fighter is going to see the utility of their weapon. A Magus is a great observation in, hey, I really like hitting things and I really like casting spells. Boop. And then you combine them too. And you get insane builds. One reference I really like pointing to for this is in Untested Gaming's Witcher build for Geralt. And I'm going to spoil it here a little bit. He's an investigator as a base class, but he multi-classes with Magus. Obviously not the full build, but the combination between Geralt using his potions, his magic, but then also being very, very good at using his swords. And I would honestly think that if I was to build Geralt, I would probably make him a Magus, because he's very good at offense with his, obviously he's the Witcher. He's Henry Cavill. He kind of needs to be good at offense. But he's using his Igni and Agni. He's using alchemy. And I think what sets Magus apart from, let's say, the rest of the classes, like compared to like I call it sister class Summoner, is Magus is going to see the practical application for both of these. A wizard is going to look at a spell and see the utility of it. Fighter's going to look at a weapon and see the utility. I really like the idea that a Magus is going to see the practical side of, you know, what happens when I mix Magus and spellcasting. What happens when I use my weapon, but then imbue my weapon with magic. Alright, I do want to cover this. Monk with the wrestler archetype and hit him with that suplex. Okay, Monk, the wrestler archetype, I have seen so many people talk about it. I have yet to play one. I really want to play with the wrestler. I've heard nothing but good things about it. I want to do a champion wrestler. I really like the idea of a divine suplex. Hit him with the smite. So that is a build for another day. So circling back to Magus. So when I say that Magus approaches a utility, that the practicality of it is their subclasses. So if for those who don't know anything about the Magus subclass, is that each subclass is based on a certain type of weapon. For instance, Laughing Shadow is a Magus that uses one-handed weapons. A Sparkling Starlight is going to be using a ranged weapon. An Exorable Iron, which is one of my favorites, is going to be using a heavy two-handed weapon. And I love seeing just the different practicality and like narrative reasons for why you're using this certain weapon. And I think that the reason why you can't make this a class archetype for the fighter is, one, could Magus use Shield Bash with Spell Strike? Yes, they can. That's Sparkling Triage, my friend. You could totally do that. I think that would be really fun. Imagine Captain America if they had that. Think about how much cooler the Avengers movie. No, granted, Captain America is a champion. We're not getting into it. But I think why it can't be an archetype is because it is just... I think this boils down for a lot of classes. It's just too unique. And we're going to get into some archetypes like Cavalier and Vigilante in a second. But first I need to speedrun through the classes. I think that's kind of all my points on it. I really like the overall feel of Magus. And just the roleplay opportunities alone is insane. Alright, I know this was talked about. McFastin, this next part is specifically for you. It's also for the rest of everyone else, but shoutouts to you. Oracle! One of my favorite classes. Currently playing an Oracle in a friend's game. And I love the Oracle. I love curses. I love being cursed. I love that I pissed off a whole pantheon and now they're mad at me and thus cursed. I think 2E brought in a great job from porting it over to 1E from 1E. The just sheer range of how you're cursed is really fun. I will say, the only thing I have against Magus is some of their class features, like whatever the curse is, Ocular Curse, there it is that some of their abilities just take forever to read through and can be very intimidating to new players. So, beyond this, the amount of narrative stuff you can do with oracles, even as a multi-class oracle. Once again, bringing up friend of the stream, Nonat once. Nonat played a fighter multi-class oracle, multi-class champion, Eldritch Archer. Is you are gaining access to a lot more narrative stuff. And I love that you narrative, like role-playing wise, if I'm a champion and then I pissed off my deity, guess what? Boom, curse. Now I'm multi-class oracle. Sorry, bud. And I love that like narrative sense that, oh, I multi-classed oracle purely because I got cursed and now I'm screwed. And I think this is super fun because not only you're going to get access to a lot more role-playing, but you're getting mechanical benefits. I love staying at the moderate cursed level. The first thing I do every day when it comes to combat is immediately as a life oracle, life link onto my friends, purely because that instantly starts getting my curse up. And I like that in that Paizo specifically really gave you some good benefits if you get cursed. Honestly, drawbacks. Of course, there's going to be drawbacks. But the benefits, guys, my level 1 Oracle can now do D12 healing if they cast heal. Just, it is stupid crazy. What's the difference between a divine curse and a boon? Okay, that is a completely different mechanic. I know what you're talking about. Divine boon is a gift. A divine curse is a, well, cursed. I really like Flame Oracle with Zuko special. Yes, okay, I think Zuko could be an interesting look at, actually, Oracle. He's very much a cursed character. He's cursed by his past. Obviously, anything he'd be a kineticist with the rest of the benders. But I think, specifically, if we're talking about just rules as written, you could definitely say that Zuko is an Oracle. A specifically Flames Oracle. He lets his temper get the best of him. You could say that he was cursed by his father, Ozai. Yes, I'm a giant nerd. If you can't tell, I love me some movies. I left Avatar Last Airbender downstairs. But my broader point being, just the narrative reasons is what sets Oracle apart. You could easily say, oh, it could have been a class archetype for cleric. It can't. It really can't. And I love what you can do with the Oracle. Alright. Rangers, I had some of the least amount of notes on. Because Rangers are wardens. They are protectors of nature. Where Druids are a natural bond between nature and the themselves. A Ranger is a warden. They are a protector. They are the champions of nature, if you say. Now, obviously, it's some fun ones to turn to. Aragorn from Lord of the Rings. And, okay, a very good take, McFastin. I'm not going to talk about it, but I really like that take. It took me a second to read through it. So, the Ranger subclass is what I think is really what sets it apart, because it's augmenting your combat playstyle by a lot. Flurry Ranger. Guys, we've seen the meme, right? They're not going to get hit. Oh, no, sorry. They're going to hit often. And I love that the Ranger, when taking a mechanical approach, is they got rid of favored terrain, they made it a feat. They got rid of favored enemy, they made it a feat. I don't know if Craig wants to talk about this or not, but back when Craig was playing First Edition with me, if you didn't have your favorite terrain, if you weren't in your favorite terrain, and if you weren't fighting your favorite monster, your favorite enemy, it kind of sucked to be a Ranger for a bit. Granted, they did make archetypes for the Ranger that kind of broaden it a little bit, but I would argue that it was kind of sucked if you going purely off the core rulebook. And I love that in 2nd edition, they took a very mechanical combat approach with the Ranger. And this will also be the fastest one that I have to talk about, because Ranger is really cool. Some other cool Rangers, just in general, you can point to the Mandalorian as being a multi-class Ranger. I'd say he's a champion, or maybe even a fighter. When the multi-class into Ranger, he's definitely a Ranger of sorts. Obviously, you could go more back into Lord of the Rings. You can go Legolas. I think that Ranger is such a broad concept that you don't even really need to connect it back to nature, even. Your Ranger could just be somebody who is very good at just tracking it down. Because you were... If you could be an underground agent. A really cool way of looking at Ranger is, hey, I'm hired by the Clasp, which is a Critical Role underground group. I'm just going to use them as an example. Hey, I'm hired by the Clasp. I need to go hunt something down. Great. Ranger. That is literally perfect. That and Investigator would be my two biggest arguments here. I know I skipped over Investigator. I really could not think of where to put Investigator in terms of how it could be a class archetype. I know that it was a mix between Alchemist and rogue, but it's really not. It can't be a rogue. It's just too unique. I think it's bringing too many new mechanics to the table. So I think Ranger... Okay, so I'm going to disagree with this a little bit. Ranger is what fighters feel like should have been. Skills, thematic styles, utility. But the difference, though, is that I agree with what you're saying, and I really like your approach. But I think about it more like in a sense that the fighter is going to be very good at multiple weapons. And your customization comes within being very good at hitting things, hence fight being in the name. But the Ranger in 2E is also about hunting. That's why you choose a specific enemy. That's why hunt prey is such tied to the class. A fighter is meant to be good at hitting anything regardless of what they are. A Ranger is very good at either one-on-one combat, and I think Rangers can take a very much of a different approach, because I think if you made Rangers a fighter class archetype, it just doesn't feel the same. Rangers would bring a very different, bringing Warden spells, because you need some Ranger spellcasting. I really like Gravity Weapon. I think that just overall Rangers are going to... They feel too different. They're not just a mechanical two-hit class. They are trackers. They are animal lovers. They respect nature. But they're also very good at hitting things. I can't argue. Precision is fun. Outwit, arguably the lesser of the three, depending on how you like playing your characters. I really like Outwit, but I think if you start combining some of the, like I said before, remember when I mentioned with Warrior Muse having that Song of Strength? Great. Outwit is going to work magic if you have that Warrior Muse barred up on there. Alright, I think I'm gonna... I understand what you're trying to say, McFastin. I kind of have to... I disagree with it from a design perspective. Because the approach that it is coming with is you are kind of a warden, a protector, even. And I think with fighter is you're just very good at hitting a lot of things, but you're not really good at tracking those things down. A ranger can do that. Rangers are very good at doing that. In fact, that's what their whole shtick is. Alright, we're gonna move on to rogues. Honestly, this is one of those classes where it is so different from the rest of them. But I'm gonna tie in rogue with swashbuckler real quick. So why isn't swashbuckler just a rogue racket or class archetype? We're going to focus a little bit more on swashbuckler. Swashbuckler, other class I'd go on a date with. The swashbuckler class is going to... It isn't more like finding weaknesses, because that's what a rogue is. A rogue is all about finding the weakness of whatever you are up against and then exploiting that weakness in terms of, I found squishy part, poke, sneak attack. A swashbuckler is style. It's that Captain Jack Sparrow, very piratey feel to it. I actually used to play a champion multi-class swashbuckler, and it was some of the best fun I've ever had. Because you are, especially if you're, oh my god, if you're a braggart swashbuckler, just intimidating a enemy and then getting panache off of that, and then, you know, I think it's very much a fighter or rogue if you enjoy blasting off with combat. And I think that's where it's going to specifically shine. Is a swashbuckler can't be a rogue because they're not finding weaknesses. They're just doing crazy things all the time. That is why swashbucklers cannot be rogues. Obviously, if you multi-class rogue, that's one thing. I just mean specifically as a class archetype. Yeah, okay, so kind of relating that is the One swashbuckler and gunslinger were actually very tied. In fact, gunslingers used to be a gunslingers used to be a rogue and swashbuckler hybrid class. Thank God that's not the case anymore. But yes, rogues are also skill monkeys. Swashbucklers aren't that. Swashbuckler is, I like dancing, panache, hiya! And that's what they do. They are just, I like the idea that there is a, one point at a time. I like the idea that I swing off the chandelier, I get panache, and then I get to drive my dagger into whatever poor soul that has to be on the other end of it. There is a video by XP to Level 3, which is a primarily D&D 5e channel. But one thing that he really liked to talk about was one of his videos was based on initiative and how you can use more narrative things. And he gave an example of swinging off the chandelier, letting you use different skills. Obviously, Tubi fixes a lot of what he was saying, but I really like pointing to this as an example of a swashbuckler just being creative. A rogue is going to do whatever they can to get their enemy flat-footed so they can find that weakness and then poke. A swashbuckler is going to luckily hit the weakness and will poke with style. I really like the idea of, I think everybody here has seen Toy Story. I think the greatest way to describe swashbuckler is, that's not flying, that is just falling with style. And that's exactly what a swashbuckler is. Alright, moving right along. Why isn't sorcerer and wizard are basically the same class? I think this has been pretty much answered for a lot of people, but for the some who are very new to TTRPGs, well, and welcome. I hope you enjoy your time here on the Deadly D8 channel. But the overall benefit I see of the two being different is a sorcerer obviously is born with their magic, a wizard studies their magic. Granted, some sorcerers can study their magic, gaining more benefits, learning new spells. A wizard has to meticulously think about what the day is going to look like. I started covering this on the, once again to plug, the Deadly D8 TikTok, where I just released the prepared spellcasting video, where if you want to learn about prepared spellcasting, please feel free to check out the video. I'm going to be releasing the spontaneous caster in the next day or so. Just need to edit it down a little bit. But I think what really separates that, sorcerer is innate, wizard is taught. I think it's a very good example. I think to argue against what a lot of people commonly think is a wizard is Gandalf is not a wizard. Gandalf, while he does study, he's definitely a lore master. Gandalf is way more of a magus. A few spells, pretty good with the sword. Honestly, I feel like sorcerer and wizard are more different from one another than any two martial classes. Yes. I really think so. However, most people just see, aha, blaster caster, we can both cast spells. But sorcerer is like, I could do whatever I want. Pew, 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 pew. And wizard has to read their tome. I really like Tui's approach with the Arcane Thesis. I love Arcane Thesis for my wizards. I personally play a Staff Nexus because it gives me a little bit of that spontaneity, but also spell slots. It's very easy to make a blaster caster Tui. I really enjoy just shooting as many spells as I possibly can in a single day. It's really fun. Alright. So, I have 2 classes left, and then we are going to talk about the overall class, how do I put this? We're going to cover Summoner, and we're going to cover the Witch, because I have some thoughts about Witch. And then we are going to talk about the Cavalier and the Vigilante. But first things first, let's talk Summoner. I have not played Summoners yet. I personally do not. I won't say do not. I just haven't given it the love I've given it other classes. However, before chat, before we start getting mad, I still love Summoner. It is still a great class. I love the ability that you get to work with your Eidolon. I really like the way that they tackled Eidolons in 2nd edition. I think it feels so unique. It's not an animal companion. It is something completely on its own. I love as Paizo moves forward with 2nd edition, the more freelancers start getting comfortable with 2nd edition, is we're going to see a lot more customization on the players. It's no longer just taking feats. I really like that the way that the Eidolons are structured is that you can mix match your one, you can make it look like anything as long as it's within your theme. I really like that. I think you're going to definitely see some great benefits to this, but I also think that the way just off of the initial level 1, the amount of choices you have really makes every summoner feel unique. And I think Paizo is taking this approach with the Thaumaturge and Psychic. Because Thaumaturge, I love Thaumaturge. I love Thaumaturge. And the way that the Thaumaturge is very much of customization. I think that we're going to start seeing more customization options come as we go more into 2nd edition, as people get more comfortable with the system. I think now that we've hit a point where all the core books are out, you can definitely build. If honestly they'd stopped after Guns and Gears, I would have about 5 years worth of content, and they would never have to release another book. Granted, I'm so happy Book of the Dead is coming out next month, as well as Knights of Last Wall. I don't know if I can say this or not, but potential spoiler alert. We did an interview with Eleanor Farron, and we learned about the Knights of Last Wall. Hopefully that video is going to drop sometime soon. Depends on... It's more on me. But that is an upcoming video. And so I really like that Paizo, the more they're getting comfortable with the system, the more we're going to start seeing customization be put back onto the player. And so I think that we're going to start seeing a lot more of this style come up, especially as the books are getting specific. I really like the Book of the Dead, specifically for undead characters. I really hope they do Book of the Damned like they did in 1st edition, or seeing this go forward, like Guns and Gears being very specific to, well, Guns and Gears. Secrets of Magic being very curtailed to just magic. I really hope that they do this forward. I hope they do like an Aberration book where we're going to learn more about aberrants, and, you know, we get an Aberration Eidolon. Ridiculous that occultism has 2 phantoms, rip spiritualist. Yeah, okay, so this is another example of a 1E class immediately dying when it hits 2E, is spiritualist is now gone. It is a summoner, which I really like. But you know what's also not the only class that only has limited options for one tradition of magic? The Witch. What a transition. Let's talk about the Witch. So, one of my initial complaints I have with the Witch is that there is one arcane witch. I get it. It needs to be different from the wizard. But rune cannot be the only type of arcane. However, I have seen great Pathfinder Infinite people take up this. Here to ruin your night. Eidolon, a Greek word pronounced Eidolon. Learned that today. See, I suck at English already. Even though it's my primary language, just can't speak it. I can't pronounce most words. I understand that it's a Greek word, but if I'm already sucky at one, just please let me take the win for just at least the pronunciation of trying to say Eidolon mostly correct. But yeah, the Witch. So, I watched a stream with the lovely Derek from Knights of Last Call, another friend of the channel. I really like the some of his takes on Pathfinder 2nd Edition. But one of the things I disagreed with him on was he thought the witch could have been a wizard archetype. I cannot. I mean, I really like his reasoning for it. I thought it was very strong. But just personally, I just have to disagree with it. I think that everyone is still entitled to whatever opinion they have, but I definitely think that witch cannot be a wizard subclass. They are bringing something completely new when it comes to 2e mechanics. One thing I really like is that they're all about sustained casting. They're very much about cackle and keeping up with that sort of, how do I put this? A kind of patron-esque, because obviously it's all about your patron. A wizard is taught their magic. As we've explained before, as MacFastin has put it so nicely, a witch is granted their magic. Very much of the warlock from 5th edition, or remnants of other classes from previous Dungeons & Dragons editions, as well as the 1st edition witch. But their patrons is where I think is where it differentiates them in terms of just playstyle. What separates them narratively from a wizard? Yes, both prepared spellcasters. But I think that's really where the line kind of ends. I really can't see it going further than that. And, I think everyone, like I said before, is entitled to their own opinions. I will not shame you for disagreeing with me here. But I really think that the witch gains its versatility from its lessons. A wizard is taught. It's mostly self-taught even, where they're learning it. A witch is given a lesson, and then they have to manifest that lesson, whether it's the lesson from their familiar, or it's the physical lesson mechanics themselves, where they are being told, like maybe you see it in a vision. One night you're sleeping, and let's say you're a rune witch, and your patron is like an aquatic-based arcane spellcaster. You can be on sail in the sea, and let's say you leveled up, you got another, say you took another lesson. Maybe you have a vision of healing, and now guess what? You're still an arcane character, but now you have the lesson on the healing lesson. I don't remember the name. It is late and my brain, but you get a lot of that, and like I was saying before, you're going to see a lot more of that customization. And I really, really like that. I think that's why the 2e, like the way that it currently is structured, separates itself from the wizard. Is a familiar is very different from a spell book. And I really think that's what's going to separate these two. All right, there's one class left. Sorry, there's two. There's technically Inventor. I talked about Inventor earlier, so I think I'm gonna I'm just gonna do 2 or 3 sentences on it. Basically, Inventor shouldn't be an alchemist. It is focusing on a specific thing, whether it be their armor, their weapon, their construct, whatever Paizo throws at us down the line. But I really think that an Inventor isn't like building things on the fly. They're physically thinking about it. They're actually, inventing. Most of my friends are engineers. I totally get it. And so I really think that an alchemist is very much on the fly, quick creating, will eventually discover stuff. But an inventor is constantly doing that. They're constantly thinking of new subsystems or new ways of approaching a problem. Obviously via their innovation. So I'm really going to say on inventors. I thought I covered them pretty well when we were talking about alchemists. And I think that's all of them. I have archives up right now, so I'm trying to see if I missed any of them. Alright. So, let's talk about 1st edition, and let's talk about the Cavalier. So, for those who do not know, a Cavalier is is somebody who specializes being on horseback or on a mount. But in first edition, it was a class. It was a whole class. And I remember back when the APG was announced, they said Cavalier is no longer a class, but now an archetype. And I remember seeing some blowback, being it should be a class, it shouldn't. It's all in the past now. There's no going back. I think that the Cavalier should not be a class archetype. It too many people benefit from it. If you're a mounted fighter, you benefit from it. If you're a champion and your divine steed and your divine allies a steed, you definitely get a lot of benefits out of it. I have a gunslinger. I'm currently running with a cowboy themed gunslinger in one of my games, and they have a undead horse skeleton. But they took the Cavalier as a gunslinger. And I think it offers too much versatility. I think if your concept is just broad and it's not bringing a lot to the table, it works best as an archetype. And I think Vigilante works in that case. Vigilante isn't bringing a lot to the table in terms of new combat systems. If you really wanted to, sure. But I remember back in first edition, Vigilante was more about the social aspect of it. Your alter ego was your whole shtick. It was your gimmick. And I think just in my professional nerdy opinion here, I think it works best as a archetype because you are getting a more social side. And I really like something about second edition is you're getting social archetypes. Dandy is definitely a class an archetype favorite over here at Deadly D8. Jess did an amazing job with that archetype. And Celebrity is also, but you're going to start seeing a lot more of these social-based archetypes. And I really think that's what sets it from 1E. In first edition, you had to take story feats or specific feats that related to, the social side. Your Vigilante had to be a whole class just to get social aspects of it. Granted, I might be remembering this a little bit wrong. It's been a hot minute since I've read Ultimate Intrigue. I don't think I own it, so I can't look behind me. But I think Paizo is doing a great job moving forward, and currently as is, bringing back first edition material in new lights. Spell shots from first edition, which used to be a wizard archetype, is now a gunslinger archetype. I think they did a great job there. Skalds, slayers. You can build all these classes now back in second edition, or they became their own thing. Swashbuckler did feel unique enough, still in first edition, where it's not a archetype. It needed to be its own class. And I'm super glad that we're now taking this new look at all of these. If they brought back Blood Rager, that cannot be its own class. I really don't think it should be. I really think that, if anything, it should be either a feat tree or an instinct. Beyond that, if they bring back Inquisitor, I hope to God that's a class that brought in something unique to combat. It was all about teamwork. But you know what? I think that's where we're going to start wrapping things up, as it's approaching very late for me. And I really won't think overall Paizo's doing a great job when it comes to class and archetypes. But I now turn the tables back to you. Oh, how the turntables have turned. You see my Twitter handle down there? Tweet at me. I want to know a hot take of yours of when it comes to the way that classes and archetypes are built. I'd love to have this discussion with you. You can also find us on Discord in the Deadly D8 server, as we have conversations like these quite often. In fact, a good chunk of this stream was because we were having very in-depth conversations about about classes. But I also want to talk not only about just Deadly D8, but some of my coworkers. So I just want to shout out, and I don't know if Vic is gonna see this, but friend of the channel, Vic, who does the guide to Galarians, has also released an Order of the Vault uh not class archetype. Ugh. They've released a Pathfinder Infinite product, which is a new Hell Knight order. I've gotten this. I've purchased it. Well worth the read. Vic is so knowledgeable when it comes to Galarian. Anytime I have a question, I instantly go to Vic or Google, depending on which one can answer me first. And they truly blew it out of the water. I really think that she did a great job. And if you have not checked that out, please do. Also, friend of the channel, Thailand and myself has written the Gunsmoke Cowboy expansion for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. If you like firearms, you like more firearms, you want more modern firearms, circa the I don't remember the whatever cowboy age is, Wild West. You very much want a cowboy themed. You get to go build your characters. I remember I wrote the ammunition sections as well as helped with some of the other formatting stuff, and just general bits here and there. I wrote the gunslinging bullet, which is essentially a ammunition where if you fire it, you pull out a bullet stops midway in the air, pulls out 2 firearms, and starts firing it. Very much a Looney Tunes, Who Framed Roger Rabbit cartoon. So if you want a little bit crazy, but if you also want 22 new firearms and weapons, yes, please go check that out. As well as for myself, I know I talked about this earlier, but I did release a new look to Champion, as it is certainly my favorite class. I will never fight with it. Champions, but it is Champion Reborn, Champion classes out of alignment. If you want to expand your champions, if you want to get more options with it, to allow for more diverse looks to the class, I really suggest checking it out. And I'm trying to think of any other projects. If you guys also haven't caught it yet, the recent Online at 6 episode is fantastic. I love watching Online at 6. By the way, guys, I don't get to see these early. I watch it when they come out with you guys. And the whole Online at 6 team did a great job with the recent episodes. And by the way, not only do we have 1 new episode, we have 2 new episodes actually, because retraining a Online at 6 GM Corner video dropped just the other day and really gave me some good ideas on how I approach retraining, and I've been thinking about it as a GM, and I think overall we have some great content. If you want to just stick around for the Deadly D8 overall content, will you do a lot of more of animation? It's not just, you know, me talking, but if you wanted to catch some of our other videos of me being here, yay. But we also released the sniping duo archetype. If you want to work with teamwork, if you want to work with your friends, it is a benefit to all. Seriously, check out the sniping duo. I know the person who actually wrote it. They did a fantastic job of the sniping duo. And overall, if you want to support us, either go to our Patreon here at the link below, patreon.com/dd8, or just come say hi on the Discord server. And just as a reminder for all future streams, stay awesome. But all of the proceeds that we get from our Patreon goes right back into our artists. They do great jobs. I really cannot thank our artists enough. We get to work with so many great people. And I think that's the end of my announcements. If you can't tell, my throat feels dead. So I'm going to end it here. But I really hope that, you know, we all get to kind of just keep moving forward in Paizo. We get to get Book of the Dead coming out soon. And just want to say thanks all. And I will see you guys in the next stream. Bye.